In this tutorial, we're going to cover how to extract the correct site information from your DWG files that you've been creating. We're going to extract just one site plan that we're going to use to help us develop our Revit site plan project. Okay, so in essence, all that you need to do is you'll need to remove all the unnecessary information in a drawing and then save it as a different drawing that you can use to keep cleaning up that you're going to be linking into Revit. So take your site plan drawing, and then what you must do is you'll need to save this. So give this a new name, file save as, and you're going to call this whatever your example. I'm going to call this example link. Okay, so underscore link. Good. So save the drawing. The next thing you're going to do is delete all the sheets in the project. So select, delete all of the sheets that you don't need, so it'll delete all the sheets. You can delete the viewport and the view that remains, because this is purely going to be a drawing that we're going to link to Revit. Then go and select the appropriate plan that you're going to link. So wherever your site plan was, you can either use your planting plan, so you can use your planting plan, or you can use your site plan. In this example, it doesn't really matter. I'm going to use this plan as an example. Now, before we continue, if you've used the UCS follow feature, so in view, and you've used the update view to plan when UCS changed, if that is on, enable that. Actually enable it for this time, and make sure that you reset it back to world. So you can use this icon over here and you can set it back to world, or you can press UCS on your keyboard and you go W for world. That will reset. So make sure that you reset all the views. Then we're going to delete all the unnecessary information. So before we continue with this process, the next step I would definitely do is go to your layers and make sure that all your layers are on, so that you get rid of all the information. So visible, on, visible, thawed, and here you're going to say locked, unlocked, so you can get rid of everything. Okay, good. So you can see there's some additional information that's in here that I need to get rid of. So you'll need to go to the external reference command. So you can either use the view and go to, you can see there's lots of external references. So let's just get rid of all of those. Detach, fantastic. Now I'm going to work just with this view over here. So I'm going to delete everything else in this drawing. So clear out all the unnecessary information. Okay, there's a very neat trick. If you, in the view, and you double click your wheel mouse and it zooms out, then it means that there's still information around that you need to get rid of. Another quick way to get rid of that information is select everything in your view by selecting, using a cross window selection, and then, my apologies, you press Control A, and then hold down Shift and then deselect the stuff in view, and then you can press delete. You can see it found 76 objects found that were out of this view. So that's important, especially if you're going to use this as a link. Great. Then I'll get rid of all the unnecessary information. So don't have the contours on, because in this example, I'm going to give you the contour files a bit later on and show you how to use those. So delete the unnecessary information, and we're going to focus on just on the information that we need to link in, because technically our site is just going to be this information over here. So here's another quick method that we can use to get rid of that information. You can click on the erase icon, and then while the erase function is active, you type in WP. So WP is window select. So if I go and select here, so it's a great method. It selects objects within a window frame. You can use that command again, so you can go erase, and if you use CP this time, cutting window, then everything that this will cut, it will delete. So yes, it will have a different result, but I'd much rather use the WP function. So WP on your keyboard, and then select the unnecessary information that we don't. Okay, I'm going to erase all that information. Get rid of that square for now, because I know where I'm working. So use the erase command. Remember, spacebar repeats the last command. WP, what type of selection? So I'm going to select all this information. Great. Spacebar repeat command. WP. Pick this, pick here. Good. So that's the information I want to get rid of. Now there's a lot of hatch in here, and this is something that I'll explain to you when we get into the project. The next thing that we want to do is make sure that the drawing is flat. So there's no objects that are in the Z plane. So that's great. Okay, then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to delete just the dimensions in this option. You can start deleting the grids and that, but for now leave the grids on. I'm just going to delete all the dimensions. Okay, any other residual information we'll come back and fix. Okay, so that's done. The next thing I will do is select everything in the view. So press Ctrl A and make sure everything is by layer. This is important. Make sure everything here is by layer, because we'll use Revit to drive a lot of this information. So make sure that's all by layer. And then the last thing we'll do is in the Manage tab, we're going to use the purge function. So we're going to purge all the unnecessary information. Make sure everything is checked as per my screen. And you're going to make sure that you select all. And you're going to say purge all. Purge checked items. So here you want to clean out the drawing. Last thing I'll do is I'll run an audit. So run an audit in the drawing. Make sure that there's no errors. Just hit yes. And then whatever errors it'll find, you see it's found 6 errors and it'll fix those errors for you. It just makes sure that the drawing is quite stable. There's some line work that's not correct here. So but that's information that we can change and override in Revit to make this look better. Okay, but for now, I'm quite happy with the end result. There's some good information that we can use now when we transfer the stuff to Revit. The last thing I need to do is move, pick a point, and I think we must all use the same point. So we're going to use the corner of the cadastral information, so the site boundary lines. We're going to use this as our internal origin. So the last thing we do is you're going to press Ctrl A, select all the objects, go to Home, and we're going to use the Move function. And we're going to move this information, so from that corner, and we're going to move it to the origin. So we're going to press, remember if you've got dynamic inputs on, you'll need to use the hash 0, 0, 0. Now you would have noticed that we've moved everything to the internal origin. This is very important. So make sure that when you start putting all this information together that everything lines up correctly. Okay, so once I've done this exercise, I can press save and save this drawing and make sure this example link drawing is saved. Now try and put all this information in the right folder. Okay, and we'll explain that in a minute. Once we start working with more of a central file type arrangement, we'll start looking how this works. So I can leave this file open now, and I'm going to leave this just like it is now. Now, the next step we'll do is we'll start Revit. So launch Revit, and we're going to start a new project using our template files. Now please go and get the link to access the BIM library so that when you're creating these types of projects, it's very easy to go and use the templates provided. Okay, so once Revit loads, okay, now that Revit is open, we're going to start a new project and we're going to use a template file to drive this. So remember, I've got the BIM library link. Just remember, you can remember to link this BIM library to your OneDrive. Then you can simply drag it from here into the quick access menu. So I've got mine handy, and if you go to Revit and I go to templates, you'll see that I've got access to all the template files that I need. So I'm going to say open. So we're going to start a new project driven by our template. Okay, so just a reminder, you'll know that this is a new project driven by a template if it says project 1. If it's got the template name at the top, it means that you've opened the template file. So you'll need to close and restart the step again. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do is go to the site plan view, and we're going to duplicate this view. Duplicate with detailing. I'm going to rename this view. I'm going to keep it as site. I'm going to put a WK suffix so that this will be my working view and this will be my final site view. We'll get into this in a bit more depth later on, but what's important is to start establishing your site drawing, okay, with its context. Fantastic. So we're going to go to site WK. Doesn't matter which view you use at this point in time, just remember at some point this will become your primary site view. Okay, but there's another video to help you with that. Great. So in this view, the first thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to go and insert. Now we're going to link CAD. Just one thing to understand, you can import CAD. So you can use the import function instead of link. You can see you've got to import CAD here, but this will come with a lot of conditions. It will import all the layers from that AutoCAD file, so it's going to make your Revit project file very messy and polluted. So in order to maintain a very clean Revit project environment, you will use the link CAD and function rather, but this means that you can go back to you can keep going back to the AutoCAD file and fixing certain things as we carry on. Okay, so I'm going to say link CAD, and just remember wherever you save this link, I'll try and keep the link files together with your project files. Okay, we'll go in more depth on how this works, but for now this is purely just an example to explain how this works. So I'm going to go to example linked. Here I know that this is a millimeters drawing because remember we scaled it by 1,000 because it's not a surveyor's drawing, it's an architectural drawing. So we're going to say millimeters. I'm going to switch off orientate to view, and I'm going to remove correct slightly off lines because a lot of the stuff is not going to be 100% aligned. So you're going to go origin to internal origin, that's correct. And we're going to make sure that we convert all the line work to black and white. Then I'm going to press, we'll leave this off for the time being. There will be an instance when you want to use this, but I think for this instance, I'm going to use this current view only. Okay, because it means that we can copy this between views. But what's neat is it's not going to pollute our 3D environment. It will only be visible on the site view, for example. Okay, so I'm going to use this function. So I'm going to say current view only, and I'm going to say open. Great. Now you can see it's brought in my site plane quite neatly. Now, there is some information. You can see that the hatch is not working well. So there's some information that I might want to go and remove, maybe like the dimensions. So if you select the linked view in your project view, and you go to query, you can go and query what objects, what layers they're on, and you can go and, what's neat about this function now is if you want to go and override how things look in the view or the project, you can go to view, you can go to visibility graphics, and you can go to import it, and you can go and find, you can see example link. So here, for example, I can go and expand and I can override everything that I've linked in. Okay, just remember this will only override things in the view. If you go to object styles now, then you can override it for the whole entire project. Okay, so we'll get to this a bit later on, but for now, I'm just going to maybe override all of this information to a gray. So here I'm just going to say override. I'm just going to make everything gray for the time being because I'll use it in the background, and you can see it make things look a bit better. But you can see we have some issues. So I'll need to go and fix those in the AutoCAD file. So I might want to delete this hatch here, and I might want to fix up things and put things on the correct layer if they're not. So just remember, everything that you link through has to be on a layer. So I've got a feeling that this drawing, there's not a hatch layer for everything that's hatched. So I would recommend that you go and fix that. But in this example, I'm going to get rid of the hatch because there's a bit of work that I'll do in the Revit file where I'll get rid of a lot of the stuff. I can see there's a hatch layer that's not great. So that's maybe what I want to go and get rid of. So let me quickly get rid of some information here. I'm going to get rid of all the hatch for the time being. You can keep the hatch, but this is just an example to show you how to use the link file. So I'm going to go hatch. I'm going to select all the hatch in the project, and I'm going to delete it all. Okay, just it's going to make my life a bit simpler. Trust me, you can leave the hatch and you can just put it on the correct layer and manage it in Revit. But when we start developing our site a bit more, I'd much rather use the tools in Revit to give me the paving effects and those type of things. So I'm going to get rid of the hatch for the time being. and I get rid of all the dimensions. So I'm going to go to the quick select tool, and I'm just going to get rid of all the line dimensions, select all, press OK, select all, press OK, delete, and I'm going to go and select all the other dimensions, select all, press OK, and I'm going to delete those as well. Now I've noticed there's some dimensions that were exploded, so maybe those will keep, but for the time being, don't stress, just make sure that you get rid of the unnecessary information. All I'm going to do now is press save, Control S, so save the drawing. Now what's great is if I go back to Revit and I go to manage and I go to manage links, so manage links, and I go to CAD and I go and say reload, you'll notice it'll come in minus all the unnecessary information. In this instance, I'm going to go to VG and I might just undo that override, so you can see it's got an override here. So I can select all of this over here and I can click on this, any one of these icons, and I can say clear overrides and it'll make it look like it was. Just remember, I can control how any line looks in the project, and at any point if you click on the link, use the query tool, you can see what objects are on what layer. So maybe in this example I'll go to VG, I'm going to go to object styles and I'm going to override the trees, for example, to be on a nice gray layer. So trees, I'm going to make all of those a gray layer, and you can see here you can adjust the line weight, so that's where if you want to fix line weights you can do it there. So for now you can see I've overridden the trees, and you'll see that the trees are starting to look pretty neat, grayed out, and it's brought all the information through that I needed. Okay, so you can see this has done quite a good job. The next thing I want you to do is with this imported, and you can see there's some dashed lines that we'll need to fix for the side boundaries, but that information we can fix quite easily because I know what layer that is on. So maybe let's just do that for the project quickly, import a category. So here I'm going to go to, remember, object styles. You can access object styles here as well. So here if you go to building, let's go cadastral. Here I'm going to make this a better dash line because that might not be, so I'm going to go and say center line small for the time being, and it's on the correct layer, press apply, and you can see you can fix this stuff very quickly, very quickly. And remember, site plan, here you can change that 1 to 200 and it'll automatically scale up the cadastral information. So you can see a couple clicks, this is really starting to look way better, and it brings the text quite nicely, so you can keep a lot of that information. Provided you're using the same font styles in Revit, you can make it look pretty neat. Okay, good. So I've got some basic information. The next thing I want you to do now is we're going to go to 3D view. Now what's neat is you'll notice in 3D view there's nothing in the view currently, and if you go back to the side view, you'll notice that it's brought the project in right in the origin in the correct location. But you'll notice that none of this information is polluting my 3D view. So I'm going to go and link one more file. So I'm going to go insert, link CAD. Now this AutoCAD file, this file will be available on the Teams platform. So that Teams platform was a link that I've asked you to also add to your OneDrives, and that's the OKU 300 support file. So you can go and download this AutoCAD file if you need to. But here, if we go to class files, we go to green market square, there's a civil drawing. Now, this is a civil drawing, so please change this to meters. Okay, you're going to leave this reserve colors, and you're going to untick this box, and you're going to untick this box, and we're going to say open. Now you'll notice it's brought in the civil drawing, and you can see the red line of the cadastral information. It overlays that AutoCAD file perfectly. Now the difference is when we uncheck that function to bring it in the view only, you'll notice that this brings in the AutoCAD file in the 3D view now, whereas that other option to link the file where it says current view only, it doesn't pollute your 3D environment with other unnecessary drawing information. This might be very critical, and I'll explain why we'll need this information. Okay, so basically on our side view now, we've got the cadastral information, which we'll unlink later on because I want this to drive my topo surface. So in 3D view, massing and site. Okay, so go to 3D view. In massing and site, what we're going to do is we're going to create a topography very quickly. And we're going to say create from imported file, select imported file, and select the civil drawing. You're going to say check none, and we're going to create majors and minors. That's all we're going to select because I know that's the stuff I needed to use to generate my topper surface. You're going to press generate. What it'll do is it'll build a topper surface to match what I've given you. The last thing we need to do is just set up your site information. So here we just need to insert another contour. We're going to remove the interval information for the time being because we're going to drive it using this function here. So we're going to have primary and secondary contours. Our primary contours are going to be at meters. So remember multi-value. So primary are going to be at a meter and secondaries are going to be at 250 mils. Okay, so start and stop, that's important. It's the range in which the contours are supposed to work. So here I'm just going to copy the top value, and it's usually 100,000, or so you can see it's usually quite a large value. I'm going to copy that and I'm going to paste this value in at the bottom. Great. So now that I've done that, I'm going to press apply, and you'll notice that the major and minor contours will follow the information. So if I select this imported AutoCAD file and I go to these glasses and I temporarily hide it, so hide element, you'll notice that it's produced the correct information. You can see the dark lines are your majors and those thinner lines will be your minor contours. Okay, so that's created your topper surface. Now, one thing to bear in mind, because this topper surface in theory, so remember in 3D view, is sitting above your levels. It's sitting above the ground floor level of your site. So there's some work that we'll need to do in here. These visibility scale, and we can make a wireframe view, or we can make a certain object wireframe so you can see through the topper surface so that you can actually see the information below. But there are ways to make this work better. Okay, so this is just one thing that you need to remember about Revit, because the contour surface goes up, and your levels that it cuts through the building can only be viewed in ranges, view ranges. So that's something that we'll get to once you start doing your building. Okay, great. But for the time being, so in site working, so maybe in site working we can, in this view, we can leave everything as hidden or shaded. That's totally up to you for this exercise. And then this view we can use. So in essence, one view is where you do most of your work, and then this view will sit on your sheet the whole time. So when you start creating sheets, you'll start using this view as your sheet. But for now, don't worry about this too much. We'll go in a lot more depth on how this works. And you'll notice, so let me just change this back to shaded, and I'm going to change this to wireframe, make your detail fine. Now you notice that my site information is not visible in the site working. So what you need to do, so you'll need to copy and paste. So you need to copy, and you'll go back to the site working drawing, and you'll need to paste this aligned to current view. And what it'll do, it'll paste that linked. Basically, it's not inserting a new link. It's just putting the same version of what you're seeing in the site view in your site working view. Okay, so that's all it's doing. You're still looking at the same information. And just as a word of caution, every time you link these files, you'll notice that they are pinned. So if you select the object and in the Modify tab, you'll notice that these objects are usually pinned. Not always, sometimes they are. You'll find that this information that came in, you'll notice it's a pin here, and you'll see that it's, if you want to unpin our object, you'll need to unpin it here. Okay, but leave it pinned. It just means that you can't accidentally move objects. Okay, just remember, I would always untick this option because that drag element is not a great tool, because by accident you can very easily drag objects around and lose accuracy. Okay, great. But anyway, we've built our topography. I just want you all to start your site plans. You've built your topography. The last thing I am going to do is I'm going to go and link. So I'm going to go and link CAD again, and I'm going to import that format file that I've given you. So the site context information, and I'm going to say auto. I'm going to say auto detect. It'll automatically detect, because it's a Revit, it's an Autodesk product. It will automatically detect the scale. So site context is what we want to bring in. You can say internal origin. Okay, you'll notice now that it's going to link in the format file that will give you for the context around your site. Okay, we'll need to move the buildings up and down, but this is just the initial start that I want you to establish your site plan, build the topography, because you're going to develop a lot of your context in this project file, and you're going to build your building in a separate project file, and then we're going to link them together. Okay, it's just good working practice and standards that we're trying to adopt. So now you'll notice that you've got some topography, but now you'll need to move the information up a bit. Okay, you'll notice that the format file, when it comes in, is also pinned, so you'll need to unpin that as well. So you're going to unpin that. You'll notice now that I can move this object. So you can move this up on the topography, move it down. So you can try and fix it in here, but ideally, because this is a link, I will try and fix this in the format file, and I can take the site information back to format and then make the necessary amendments. But what's important now is if you go to your site view and I switch off the wireframe mode and so switch off the wire and make it shaded. So here you can see if I go to VG and I go to T for topography, I can switch off my topography. Now I've actually got the roof context information over my site plan. Okay, so this is really starting to work well. Just remember, because this is a linked file, I can change this to foreground, which will address a lot of the issues. Now, guess what? If I bring back BG, if I bring back my topography, T for topography, and it will sit above my topography as well. So now I've got a very neat, complete site plan with all the information that is shown. Okay, so this is very neat how this works. All right, so I want all of you to establish a site plan. Then you'll need to go and save this project. So you'll need to save this project. Save project, and this will be your site plan. Now, we're going to give you all a link to save this file. Okay, so this is going to be quite important as well. There's going to be a project links folder. So you'll see 2003 A1 contextual. There's another folder that we're going to give you where you need to start saving these project files to make sure that you don't lose your information. And if I need to help you, I've got access to your project files all the time. Okay, that's something that we'll discuss in class. Thank you.